Thank you, Madam Chair. In just a moment, I'll be calling up my amendment, Lee number 1 to S4802. But I'd like to take just a moment to discuss the importance of the United States Coast Guard and express my concerns over how COVID-19 vaccine requirements could jeopardize the mission of the Coast Guard. The United States Coast Guard motto is Semper Paratus, which means always ready. Now, many of us know that of the Coast Guard's life-saving search and rescue missions. In 2021 alone, those missions assisted 20,461 people and saved 4,555 lives. Fewer people, however, may be aware of some of the other things the Coast Guard does, including their drug seizure operations, that they save thousands of additional lives every single year. American lives that they save year after year. For example, in 2022, thus far alone, the Coast Guard has seized over 318,000 pounds of illicit drugs. The Joint Economic Committee estimates that 10,329 Americans would have died due to overdose or those drugs consumed. Thus, the Coast Guard prevented over 10,000 Americans from drug overdoses and over 4,500 lives through search and rescue operations, not to mention the 20,000 assists. Well, it's worth emphasizing how impressive these results are, given both the limited budget and the limited personnel within the Coast Guard. Indeed, the recruitment of our armed forces as a whole poses a severe risk to our national security and domestic safety when recruitment dips. This is all the more disturbing to me, and should be, I think, to all of us, that the federal government is currently forcing service members out because they have not received the COVID-19 vaccine. It's simply not okay. A recent report showed that 7 cadets were expelled from the Coast Guard Academy for declining to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. These are patriots. They're patriots who signed up to serve their country. And how do we return the favor? Well, in that case, sadly, it was by showing them the door. But it shouldn't be that way. Estimates suggest that roughly 5% of active duty Coast Guard personnel are unvaccinated for COVID-19. 5% of our active duty members in the Coast Guard amount to approximately 2,225 members. We're currently at risk of losing a number of personnel to a dangerous degree, a degree that we should not be willing to accept. Now listen, I'll be the first to admit there are some things on which we disagree. We won't settle all of our differences today. We might disagree on immigration or on how to secure our border. We might disagree on the necessity of certain spending measures. We may disagree on the efficacy of broad vaccine mandates. But I believe that if we're being honest with ourselves, we simply cannot allow the discharge of thousands of our Coast Guard men and women who have not committed a single crime, who have not done anything wrong. To the contrary, they're responsible for saving thousands of American lives every year. We need them now more than ever, considering the significant increase in overdose deaths throughout our nation over the past 5 years. These Americans deserve better from us. We can't allow that to happen. So my amendment today is straightforward. It, 1, prohibits the implementation of a COVID-19 vaccine mandate in the United States Coast Guard, including active duty, reserves, cadets, and civilian workers. 2, it reinstates any members who have been discharged. 3, it requires the Coast Guard to adopt the CDC's most recent COVID-19 prevention guidance. If it's good enough for the CDC, it should be good enough for the Coast Guard. Our safety at home and abroad depends on our ability to be, as the Coast Guard motto suggests, always ready. Under the current status quo, we risk jeopardizing our nation's preparedness and the safety and lives of individual Americans, thousands and thousands of them. For that reason, I urge my colleagues to support the adoption of my amendment, and I'll be asking for a roll call vote. Thank you.